motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest as it pertains to newly crowned WBA bantamweight champion Shernika Johnson, who says, "I want another fight before the end of the year, and we want to look to start unifying titles."
I don't mind that idea.
Immediately after Shernika Johnson beat then-champion Nina Hughes for the WBA title at 118 pounds, there was talk of having two fights already lined up, that she would have to meet former champion Jamie Mitchell, then run it back with Nina Hughes in a rematch situation. Since then, it feels like the plans have changed, as Lou DiBella made a proposition that they should do an 8-women tournament featuring Shernika and Nina and Jamie and some of the other bantamweights, as well as the other champions, Dina Thorslund
And Miyo Yoshida.
The problem is, as ambitious as that tournament might be, and entertaining, it needs a financier. It needs financial backing. Without financial backing, it never gets off the ground. The same applies for the two fights they had lined up for Shernika beforehand. The Jamie Mitchell fight, the Nina Hughes rematch, that requires a financier too, and the issue is none of these fighters are with a major promotional outfit or an outfit that has a broadcast deal.
Aren't all these fighters with Lou DiBella?
Yeah, and Lou DiBella doesn't have a broadcast deal, a major broadcast deal like Top Rank has one, Matchroom, Golden Boy. He ain't got that. For all Lou DiBella's well wishes, he ain't got the money to do that on his own. He needs somebody to back it.
So maybe that's why all these weeks and months have passed since Shernika won the WBA title, and there's not so much as any tentative news as when she will be fighting again. Now, granted that there's plenty of time left this year to get her back out there one more time against Jamie, against Nina, against somebody else, maybe a champion. There's still time.
Without money, it won't happen. It still surprises me that Shernika Johnson, a New Zealand native who's based out of Australia and has been based out of Australia for several years now, she's not with a major outfit down there like, say, No Limit Promotions. No Limit does women's fights. They have women fighters. Chanel Dargan.
Jasmine Parr.
Jasmine just fought. Jasmine literally just fought like a week ago. So why don't they have a world champion? Why don't they sign Shernika Johnson, a 2-division champion? She was a champion at 122. She's a champion now at 118. She's adaptable, malleable. She's got a fan-friendly style. She can be a cerebral boxer and a brawler when the situation calls for it. I don't understand why they haven't picked her up.
She says she wants to unify.
There are only 2 other champions at this weight. One of them is unified champion, unified 2-division champion Dina Thorslund of Denmark, who has a fight coming up, and the other is Miyo Yoshida, who hasn't fought yet this year and seems to have been left in limbo ever since she won the IBF title from Ebony Bridges. Neither of those 2 fighters have fought since they fought each other last year.
On Devin Haney's undercard.
Miyo Yoshida does not appear to be under any orders at this time to satisfy any mandatory challengers, which means she's free. She's free to unify with Shernika Johnson. That's Shernika's best bet to become a unified champion at this weight, because I think Dina Thorslund would beat them both. She would beat Shernika, and she would beat Miyo.
She's the best.
Perhaps it's a blessing in disguise that she's otherwise preoccupied and not available at this time. She has a fight coming up, so that leaves these 2 to unify with each other. If it's these 2, Shernika beats Miyo.
She wins the fight.
She's younger, she's sharper, she can fight smarter. She's got more than one way of fighting a fight, whereas Miyo is a little bit more straightforward. She's a come-forward volume puncher, in many ways a pressure-style fighter.
The look of her is a brawler, and a brawler is just a pressure fighter without all the bells and whistles.
These base styles, they have grades, they have tiers, and brawlers are pressure fighters just in the lower tier.
Shernika beats her.
If she can get her in the ring, and that's the problem. To get her in the ring, you need money. You need a financier. Doesn't matter if it's a Mitchell fight, a Hughes rematch, or a Yoshida unification match. You need money.
To make it happen, to pay the fighters.
The sanctioning fees, you need money. And I don't think Lou DiBella's got it.
If he did, we would have heard something by now about what Shernika's gonna do.
It's not that I think Lou doesn't want to. If he had the resources, he would provide them.
But he ain't got it.
Shernika needs to align herself with a promoter, a major promoter with a broadcast deal, so that she can fight on a regular basis. That's what she needs to do, and preferably in the land down under, in Australia, where she's based out of.
No Limit Promotions seems like the natural choice.
If you can sign a couple of prospects like Chanel Dargan and Jasmine Parr, why wouldn't you want to sign a world champion? That's what Shernika Johnson is. She has been at 2 weights. You know she can handle herself. Hopefully they do, so her career can get some more structure and stability, because right now, it looks like she's in limbo.
Yeah, Canelo has been mentioning David recently. Said, hey, look what happens when he fights guys his own way. Nothing special happens now. And all he's done is brought fighters up, and that's why he's looked the way he's looked.
Yeah, no excuses, but David in that fight, a lot of people know that he came injured with both hands and a cut over his eye. No excuses, but to me, I feel so proud how the way he looked. He won. He looked spectacular in my eyes. The way he came in. I think he could have stopped that guy maybe in 2-3 rounds, but I'm very satisfied and super happy of the performance that he did that night with 2 messed up hands and a cut over the eye.
You have to love how many times you hear that in the sport of boxing, when you hear a guy say, we're not going to make excuses, we're not going to do that, no excuses, and then the guy proceeds to make nothing but excuses. Well, it was a hand injury this time. His hands were injured.
Oh.
So then what happened in the Caleb Plant fight? There was no talk of hand injuries or a hand injury in the Caleb Plant fight. No, the excuse that time was holding. Oh, Caleb kept holding. This time,
You don't know how to break a clinch?
is it hand injury or hand injuries? He couldn't stop Vajdik, who has been stopped before by a better fighter and a more heavy-handed puncher in Artur Beterbiev. David couldn't do to Vajdik, an older version of Vajdik, what Artur did to a younger version of Vajdik. So are you now expecting us to give your son the grace that your fans didn't give Canelo Alvarez when he was reported to have had a hand injury? He had a hand injury in the Bivol fight. That's the story.
So you want we should give your son the grace that your son's fans didn't give Canelo? Or should we treat your son the way your fans treated Canelo?
It's good for the goose is good for the gander. Don't take it personal, little fella. It's just a bit of banter.
That rhymed.
Wasn't a hand injury. That's not why David Benavidez couldn't knock out Alexander Vajdik. No, it's not because of the hand injury or hand injuries, because before that, when he had no hand injuries, he couldn't stop Caleb Plant, and Caleb has been stopped before.
Just not by David.
Speaking of Caleb Plant, earlier this week, didn't Caleb Plant say that Canelo Alvarez has more single punching power than David Benavidez? That while David puts punches together, Canelo has more power. Even though he's smaller and even though he's older, he punches harder.
Didn't he say that?
And didn't Dmitry Bivol say the same thing over a year ago? That having sparred David Benavidez and having fought Canelo Alvarez, comparing their power, Canelo has more power.
That's what he said.
It's what comes to mind almost immediately as I hear Jose Benavidez, the father of David Benavidez, make these excuses. Excuses for his son that I expect him to make. It's what any father would do. I don't even hold it against him.
But they are excuses.
This is why when I see David Benavidez's fans carry on about how David would do this to Canelo or he would do that to Canelo, that he would stop him.
No, he wouldn't.
You couldn't stop Caleb Plant and you couldn't stop Alexander Vajdik. Those two fighters have been stopped before, whereas Canelo's never even been dropped, much less stopped.
You wouldn't stop him.
The somber tone in the voice of Jose Benavidez as he communicates these sentiments, these thoughts. I get the sense that it's not all sunshine and rainbows at the Team Benavidez camp, seemingly at the mercy of Canelo Alvarez, hoping and waiting that maybe they'll win that golden ticket, win that sweepstakes. He's supposed to be in line for the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol, but you guys know what I think. I don't think he wants that fight.
No.
Rumors swirling that he has since rehired Memo Heredia, his strength and conditioning coach, even though he's supposed to be a light heavyweight. Moving forward, then why would you bring him back? What do you need him for?
You don't have to make 168 anymore. You should feel all right up there.
The ongoing feud between David's supporters, that small rabble of individuals, and Canelo Alvarez's legions, his fans. I'm not against David getting that opportunity because I know what's going to happen.
He's gonna lose.
When he does, the people putting him on a pedestal right now will not stand by him because they're not fans of David Benavidez more than they're haters of Canelo Alvarez. No, if David had fans, the 2 pay-per-views he headlined would have did a lot better.
You wouldn't have ended up on Javante's undercard if your 2 pay-per-views actually sold something.
Perhaps his online metrics are misleading, deceiving. How many content creators here in the YouTube boxing community don't blow smoke up their subscribers' asses about this fighter?
How many?
Bigger channels than this one with better metrics than this one. Older channels too. Oh, they love talking about what David would do to Canelo, and the metrics are actually very good online, where everything is free.
Pay-per-views, however, are not.
Is that your core demo? The people that don't watch anything unless it's free? You won't get very far with fans like that.
With fans like that, who needs enemies?
David is supposed to be coming back before the year is out. No word against who. Will that be an undercard fight? Or will he be headlining? It's not easy, because I don't think they necessarily want David to campaign as a light heavyweight moving forward. They've greatly benefited over the years from the size advantage that he has over most other super middleweights. The problem is he's busting at the seams. He's been there for years, and he can't keep making it. Not healthy.
He'd make it for Canelo, though.
Which is why I think Canelo would beat him. Canelo punches harder than David. Tactically and technically, he's got the right style for David. That fight is just the Jaime Munguia fight all over again. Except this guy is struggling to make the weight where Jaime wasn't.
It's an easy fight for Canelo. David Benavidez is easy work.
You just don't believe me because Showtime told you he's special. Showtime, that is no longer in boxing. Yet another one of Jose Benavidez's fighters that are gunning for a Canelo Alvarez fight. Eddie Hearn said, the reality is the WBO is going to call Diego Pacheco as the mandatory against Canelo in the next 6 to 12 months. He's already number 1, and when that opportunity comes, we've got to take it because it's like a lottery ticket. So you've got to just try and make sure that he's ready. There is not enough time in between now and the next 12 months for Diego to be ready for somebody like Canelo. I don't want to waste your time.
You know what I think? Diego's not ready for a fight like that. There are more interesting and intriguing matchups for Diego.
Interesting matchups for Canelo as well, that I've no appetite for a fight between those 2 fighters, irrespective of where the WBO ranks him.
There's more to boxing than what you see on paper. He may be number 1 ranked by the WBO.
Oh, you mean like Edgar Berlanga's ranked at number 1 by way of the WBA? And how many people think he's ready for Canelo?
Hart is a good fighter who brings a good fan base. It brings a lot of people, and I wish him all the best in his next fight as well. The guy he's fighting, I have a hard time pronouncing his name, but you guys know who he is. Eric, guy from Canada. He's I was supposed to fight him for this fight. We had agreed on it, and when it came down to signing it, I guess they had the Munguia fight, so they chose that route, and that's how we ended up with Sulecki. And now we're here,
Insights into how those 2 fights came into being: Pacheco versus Suliecki, Munguia versus Bazinian.
Diego took care of business. We all saw it. We talked about it.
Now Jaime's got to do his thing. We've got to see if he can take care of business, rebound off his first professional loss to Canelo Alvarez. Eddie Hearn stated, Munguia versus Pacheco sells out the Crypto.com arena. My relationship with Oscar De La Hoya is sometimes hit and miss, but as we know, Jaime Munguia left Golden Boy, and he's now with Top Rank, so maybe that's a fight that can get made.
Why? Because your relationship with Top Rank is better than your relationship with Golden Boy? Near as I can tell, you don't get along with either of them.
It's not a bad shout, though. Not a bad suggestion. Diego Pacheco should face a former champion of some kind, and a common opponent with Canelo Alvarez if he is to face him one day, if he is to be ready for such an assignment, if it's ever assigned to him.
I don't know that it ever will be.
Don't lose focus that as a boxing fan, of course, you want to be entertained, you do, but you also want to be intrigued. What you know, you want it to be challenged.
What you think you know.
Because knowing it all isn't any fun. Knowing the outcome of a fight and being sure of it. Whereas Pacheco versus Munguia, that's a spicy fight. Diego Pacheco has the right style for a pressure style fighter like Jaime Munguia, but Munguia has all the rounds and all of the experience that Diego doesn't have.
Diego is best described as a boxer-puncher. He can box when he needs to, punch when he needs to. He's not a safety-first fighter. He looks for the knockout.
He's a boxer-puncher. Jaime is a pressure fighter. Historically, boxer-punchers tend to have an advantage over pressure fighters because they can box when they need to and punch when they need to. Alternate between offense and defense, laying off and laying into the opponent. Diego has the right style for the job, but not the right level of experience. That creates intrigue.
I ain't biased.
Even though I really don't like a lot of Jose Benavidez's shenanigans as it pertains to a Canelo Alvarez fight, I do like his fighter. I do have a high opinion of Diego Pacheco. I think with the right development, he can go all the way. He should be fighting a guy like Jaime before he worries about a Canelo.
That would be ideal.
It doesn't benefit the fighter in the long run to skip steps. That's what Edgar Berlanga has been doing, and that's why nobody gives him a shot to beat Canelo Alvarez, because they know he hasn't had the right developmental fights. He doesn't have the ceiling for that assignment, and in all likelihood, he's going to lose.
You shouldn't skip steps.
So when people start talking about Pacheco versus Canelo, well, that's what that would be. Diego Pacheco has nowhere near the level of experience it takes for a fight like that.
Then what should they do?
See about getting the winner of Munguia versus Bazinian, whoever it is. If you can't, target the winner of Skull versus Shishkin. That's going to be for the IBF title. Go after them.
What about the WBO?
Forget about the WBO. Are you focused on the short term or the long term? Because those are two very different things, very different strategies. Do you want a long and successful boxing career, or are you ready to cash out in your 20s?
If you go after Canelo, that's what you're doing. You're cashing out because you're not going to win. The only reason you're taking the fight is because of the money.
And you can do that. And of course, Eddie Hearn does have a commitment towards getting his fighter the best fight that he can, the best money, I should say. And that's what that would be. That's what that would represent.
In the short term.
As a short-term goal. But if it is your long-term goal to have a long and successful boxing career,
That ain't the way to go.
we're talking as if it's up to them when it's really up to Canelo Alvarez anyway. Whether or not he feels like fighting a Diego Pacheco, he might not. He might chuck that belt the same way he chucked the IBF and put an end to the conversation.
He can.
He's Canelo Alvarez. He don't take no orders from nobody, not the promoters, not the sanctioning bodies. Maybe he decides he's going to give David that opportunity. David Benavidez, who we just talked about.
Diego's a great kid. I think he's a great young fighter, and I think he could go all the way in time. But right now, nobody knows him.
At least not Canelo. I don't think Diego is so much as a blip on Canelo Alvarez's radar.
Sorry.
That doesn't even feel like a real conversation. Canelo versus Pacheco? Seriously?
Stop wasting each other's time.